All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the press briefing on the state's response to the pandemic. We've got a lot to cover today, and I've got a Nebraska State Patrol graduation ceremony for Camp 6-3 coming up here at 10 a.m. So we're going to move right along today. As always, I want to remind people about using the tools we've been given to be able to slow the spread of the pandemic, keeping that 6 foot of distance between you and other people, wear a mask when you go to the store, wash your hands often, stay home if you're sick, work from home if you can, go to the store once a week by yourself. Please be mindful of that physical distancing and wearing a mask, especially during this Christmas holiday shopping season. Anyway, so we want to make sure we slow down the spread of the virus. Also, avoid the 3 C's so that we can avoid the spread of the virus as well. And of course, Test Nebraska is available. So we have returned 536,000 tests through Test Nebraska. We've gotten the turnaround time over the last 7 days has been less than 24 hours. So great idea that if you want to get tested before the holidays to make sure you're not carrying around the virus. That's a great idea. All right. So quick update. Well, and then of course we've got 602 hospitalizations. So hospitalizations are down from our high of 987 about a month ago. We want to make sure we continue to slow the spread of the virus and see those hospitalizations decline. Update on the vaccine briefly. We've now been informed that we will receive an allocation of 11,900 Pfizer vaccines next week. What we're going to do with those is bank them, and we're supposed to get another 11,900 the following week. So we'll put those two together and start our long-term care vaccination program through the pharmacies that the federal government has contracted with. And that would be Walgreens, CVS, and the community pharmacies. So again, we're not going to be taking physical delivery of those vaccines. We will bank them, and then the week of December 28th, we will be able to start that pharmacy program to be able to help vaccinate our long-term care residents and staff. So that will be the plan for those Pfizer vaccines. Now, we also expect that Moderna will be approved here either today or tomorrow, and that we should receive those vaccines, about 32,000 of them, next week. And we will distribute those, as we mentioned before, to hospitals, clinics, local health departments, and part of that allocation will also go to those long-term care facilities that were not a part of the pharmacy program for whatever reason. So we will be able to start addressing long-term care facilities hopefully next week as well. So of course that's dependent upon us being able to get the Moderna shipped to us, but we expect that to happen. Also, as of about 11:25 yesterday morning, we had inoculated 4,069 Nebraska residents. So we are seeing those vaccines starting to roll out, which is all good news as well. You know, obviously we've been battling this pandemic for over 9 months now. And over 153,000 Nebraskans have tested positive. And that is likely just a fraction of the total number of Nebraskans who have contracted coronavirus. Obviously, back in March, we didn't have a lot of the testing facilities we have today, so we weren't able to test people. And of course, we know some people get very mild symptoms or no symptoms at all. In fact, UNMC estimates that maybe 3 to 4 times the number of Nebraskans that have been tested actually have contracted the coronavirus. And certainly we had Waste and Done here, and again, non-scientific, not a random sample, but about 25% of the people that they see giving blood have the antibodies when they do the serological test. With that much spread of the virus, we know that many families have been severely impacted this. Even with declining hospitalizations and cases, we still have over 600 people in the hospital. Many Nebraskans are severely ill. And over 1,400 Nebraskans have passed away with coronavirus. So what we want to do is remember that many families are severely impacted. Many families are going to be experiencing the sorrow of not having their loved ones at the holidays with them. And we want to grieve with them for their loss, and we want to support them. And so on Sunday, December 20th, I'm going to proclaim it a day of prayer for relief from the pandemic, but also the strength to endure it, and encourage people whatever faith tradition they choose, to join us in prayer for the end of this pandemic and to remember those who have suffered. August 3rd of 1849, President Zachary Taylor proclaimed a day of prayer for the cholera epidemic. And so we have a tradition here in our country in remembering those who have died and seeking the end of these plagues. So we also encourage Nebraskans this weekend to find a way to serve their fellow citizen, whether it's some act of charity, maybe a donation, or some service they can provide. And we have my wife, our First Lady, Suzanne Shore, here to talk about how we can make this a weekend of remembrance and honoring those who have been impacted by this pandemic. She also has information on how those who have lost their loved ones can memorialize them. So with that, I'm going to ask my wife, our First Lady, to come up and talk a little bit more about that.
I'm your First Lady, too.
You're my First Lady.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks for letting me be here. Thank you to all of you who are here. So we are going to designate the next 3 days as the weekend of remembrance and honor, so that all of Nebraska can recognize and commemorate those who we have lost during this year to COVID. Now, every loss is painful, but I know that these are especially heavy losses, given the challenging times that we're enduring. Often we haven't been able to spend time with our loved ones like we'd like to. We haven't been able to hug and console one another, and often we haven't even been able to go and mourn as friends, family, as communities. I'd also like to acknowledge the loved ones of those who've died. They've lost so much during this particular time. Pete and I hope that all of you find peace and comfort in family members and in the memories that you hold dear. I ask that each of us reach out to anyone we know who has lost someone recently and just let them know that you're thinking of them. This is the biggest gift that we can give right now. This is a prime opportunity to make a connection with one another, especially during this important time when we're having to isolate and limit our encounters with each other. We can use this painful time as an opportunity to brace and support our fellow Nebraskans when we need it the most. I also want to thank those who are working tirelessly for their fellow citizens and their communities, often through their own difficulties and their own grief. I'm thinking about the teachers and the staff in schools, the nurses, the doctors, the staff in hospitals and long-term care facilities, and first responders. It also includes those who are working in jobs that make sure people can put food on their tables and have roofs over their families' heads. I've watched this kind of work happen over the past 9 months. I work closely with the community collaboratives who work with the Bring Up Nebraska initiative, and these are people who are making sure that Nebraskans have access to services and funding needed to weather this storm. I've watched as they have worked so hard for their communities, often through their own pain and distress and their own loss. I know that many Nebraskans are doing this kind of work, and to all of you, I want to say thank you. You are definitely worth honoring. Through this weekend of remembrance and honor, we want to spend some time reflecting on the loss and challenges that we've experienced and begin a long period of healing. I know that we're not out of the woods right now, but we can begin that journey by connecting and supporting one another. This weekend we encourage all Nebraskans to spend time acknowledging and honoring those who have died. Nebraska Impact has established a memorial wall for people to post testimonies and memorials of the loved ones they've lost to COVID. The site already has so many lovely stories and pictures of parents and grandparents, sons and daughters, friends, and we invite anyone willing to share their loved ones' stories to participate. These memorials help us all remember, celebrate, and heal. They can include photos, stories, poems, pictures of artwork created in honor of someone. They can even link to videos and songs. Now, the website is neimpact.org. That's the letter N, letter E, neimpact.org. And I also invite everyone to visit this site and see the amazing Nebraskans who are being honored there. I've read every story at least once, and I can tell you it is worth the time. Also during this weekend, we encourage Nebraskans to engage in acts of honor. These can be acts of kindness to neighbors or strangers. It can be volunteering or making a charitable contribution to an organization working to mitigate the effects of the pandemic. I'll be giving blood in honor of Roger Ryman and Mary O'Hare. You can find volunteer and charitable opportunities at nevolunteers.org. That's the letter N, the letter E, volunteers.org. And Sunday will be a statewide day of prayer, and we ask everyone to reflect and pray in your own way to those who have been lost to COVID. During this weekend, Pete and I will have all Nebraskans in our prayers and in our thoughts, and I want to wish all of you a peaceful and loving holiday, and I look hopefully to 2021. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, honey. And with that, I will sign the proclamation for our statewide day of prayer. I encourage Nebraskans to take due note of the day of prayer on Sunday. Thank you again. Okay, so before we get to our next speaker, I did want to remind folks that with regard to Test Nebraska, that we will be closing testing sites at 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and they will not be open on Christmas Day. But the Test Nebraska lab will be working through the holidays of both Christmas and New Year's, and the sites will be open on New Year's as well. So the only days that we will not be running Test Nebraska sites will be Christmas Eve. They'll close at 5 p.m., and then will be closed Christmas Day, and then the New Year's Day and New Year's Eve, the Test Nebraska sites will be open, and the lab will be open the entire time processing those results. All right, next. So we have our Tax Commissioner, Tony Fulton, here to talk about our property tax program that was passed. The legislature passed LB 1107, which significantly increases the amount of property tax relief for Nebraskans. Does it through several ways. First of all, it puts in statute the $275 million in the Property Tax Credit Relief Fund. This is a fund that was established before I became governor, but working with the legislature, we've helped grow that fund from $140 million to nearly doubling it to the $275 million it's at today. So that's part of what LB 1107 does. The other part is that it creates a refundable income tax based upon the school property taxes you pay that you can get reimbursed back from the state. That fund will start at $125 million and ramp up to $375 million. So by the time you get the $275 million for the Property Tax Credit Relief Fund and the $375 million for the refundable income tax credit, you've got $650 million in tax relief coming from the state every year when those are fully ramped up. To put that in perspective, if you own a farm in Hamilton County of about 1,000 acres, that's about a 21% break on your property taxes. If you own a home, $200,000 home here in Lancaster County, it's about a 17% break on your property taxes. So significant property tax relief. Now, you will have to claim that income tax credit, and so our tax commissioner, Tony Fulton, is going to walk through a little bit about what people should be thinking about as they do their tax planning for next year. So, Tony, will you please come up and share with us a little about what our Nebraska taxpayers should be doing?
Very good. Well, thank you, Governor. This is an opportunity for us to provide a friendly reminder that tax season will soon be upon us. The year 2020, thankfully, is soon going to be over. And so we should be thinking about, or at least we'd like to get you thinking about getting ready to file your income tax returns in Nebraska for the 2020 tax year. And that, of course, will begin in 2021. Thanks to the work of Governor Ricketts and the legislature, for the first time ever, you'll be able to claim a refundable income tax credit for a portion of the school district taxes that you've paid. A refundable credit, that means that even if your state income tax liability is zero, that is, you don't owe anything to the state in taxes, you would still receive the balance of the credit as a refund from the state, but you have to claim it. The Department of Revenue is currently working with the counties and other stakeholders on a parcel lookup tool through which you'll be able to compute the school district taxes paid on your property and the amount of credit you're entitled to. This tool will be available on February 1st. This is how you'll know what portion of your property taxes may be claimed as a credit on your income tax return. When you claim your credit, the Department of Revenue will verify that you are the rightful owner of the property on which any credit is paid. This is how we'll guard against fraudulently claimed credits. Many people across the enterprise of state and county government have been and still are working feverishly on this historic initiative. So more information is forthcoming in the weeks ahead. We expect the process to be smooth for filers. However, as with any new initiative, we anticipate there will be questions. So please watch our website, revenue.nebraska.gov, as we will continually post content to assist taxpayers and to answer your questions. Again, thanks to the work of Governor Ricketts and the legislature, for the first time ever, you'll be able to claim a refundable income tax credit for some of the school district property taxes you're paying. So 2021, we hope, will be a much greater year. The bar was pretty low, I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. As the year draws to a close, we also have seen the successful conclusion of the first semester of schools. Universities and K-12 schools were able to operate here in the state with modifications, obviously. School districts put together plans that were appropriate for their particular school districts, whether it was having kids in classrooms with masks and social distancing, or remote learning, or a combination of the two. It was a lot of hard work on the part of our educators. Teachers had to perform oftentimes double duty by teaching in the classroom and being prepared to teach remotely as well, teaching those online kids. So it was really quite a challenge for our educators here, and I'm not sure when they've had a greater challenge. But they performed wonderfully well and completed a successful semester so far. So here today we also have our Commissioner for the Department of Education, Matt Bloomstead, who is going to be talking a little bit more about the end of the semester and what we can look forward to next year. Commissioner?
Yes, and thank you, Governor. And really, I think in the opportunity right now is to, in many ways, celebrate lives perhaps lost and remembrance on that front, but also celebrate the very hard work that folks have done in 2020. Our school officials, our teachers, bus drivers, custodians, maintenance folks have actually made this work. And I'm very proud of what Nebraska has done so far. I'm in a lot of national conversations. I'm soon to share a note to all of our school leaders across the state, just thanking them for their efforts and kind of a little bit of a remembrance and appreciation for what they've done. But if you realize school districts like LA Unified in California has not been in person since March. And many other school districts, large school districts, small school districts all across the country have struggled to be in that. And I can only imagine what that recovery may look like for them. As we know that remote learning hasn't been everything that we would have hoped for. It hasn't provided the types of social contacts that were necessary. But in Nebraska, all of our students have experienced in-person educational opportunities this fall. And I think that's absolutely remarkable in the sense that we didn't know what could happen. When we went and reflect back on what was going on in August, we laid out work. I've been in so many of these opportunities with the governor in this setting. You know, we didn't know necessarily what was going to happen. But what we did know, like 2019, which I thought was a pretty bad year with all the flooding as well, we did know that solutions came at that local level. And it was people rolling up their sleeves at that level, making decisions about what was appropriate, finding a way to keep students and families and communities safe at that time. The same has been true here. We've learned, there are procedures and practices and things that make a real difference in our schools. We know that masking in our schools is actually helping prevent the spread within schools and keeping that environment largely safer than anywhere else. Pretty much all of our anecdotal information shows that the protocols, when followed, are actually very much working, and I think that's really something to be celebrated. And we have so many of those anecdotes in Nebraska, sometimes it's hard to go, well, is that really happening? Do we have other data? And just this week, in fact, the CDC released a study from Mississippi looking at school-aged children, and they show the exact same thing, that the risk of childhood transmission is not in schools as much as it's in private or social settings or other settings where masks aren't part of the regular routine. So it's really important that, we have completed this semester for the most part. There's a few schools that there's probably, students don't take it as you're done for the year after today if you've got school a little bit next week. But the reality is we've completed a very successful semester. My halftime speech, if there is one, so to say, for our schools is get that rest and relaxation, celebrate your successes. Thank you to the teachers. Thank you to everyone that's been involved to ensure that we get there. And then retool. If there are things that we need to change that improve our practices going into the next semester around education, really a focus on hitting those things that students may need, our social emotional needs, ensuring that our families understand what the procedures will be when we return to school, we'll have a successful second semester as well. So thanks for the hard work. Thanks, Governor, for all your leadership in these moments in time. Thanks mostly just to the folks that are on the front lines. And thanks, by the way, as you were talking about testing sites, and I go get tested every week pretty much, and then usually about 24 hours, Governor, just so you know that I get those results back. But those people are working in the cold outside in many cases doing that. I'm very glad that they're able to get a day off at Christmas, but everybody across the state has really been able to roll up their sleeves, and we're going to get through this as a result. So thanks to everyone in education, but thanks to really just every Nebraskan that's worked so hard to ensure that we're able to keep moving through this pandemic. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioner, for your work and the work of your team. And again, just congratulations to all the teachers, administrators, staff, everybody involved in our school districts who've worked so hard over the course of this last semester to be able to provide that education to our young people. We know when young people can come into the classroom, they get that socialization, but schools also not only provide for that academic progression, but for nutrition, mental health, physical health, all sorts of things are beneficial when kids can be in classrooms. So again, I just want to say thank you to all the teachers out there who've worked so hard over the course of this last semester. All right, so next week we will be doing a press briefing at 10 a.m. again here in this room, and that will be the last one for Christmas week, and we don't have any press briefings planned for New Year's week. And then also we have the State Patrol graduation ceremony coming up here at 10 a.m. So with that, we will go ahead and open it up to questions and answers. And Taylor, I think you might have some.
Don Walton's already got answered, but Julie Anderson has a clarifying question about the Pfizer vaccine allotment.
Yeah.
She wants to know, something appears to be going on at the federal level. Does Governor Ricketts have any insight into what is going on? Do the 11,900 doses next week cover the doses Nebraska was going to be short?
So the question was from Julie Anderson, the Omaha World Herald, the 11,700 that we are supposed to get next week was not as many as was originally planned, but when we roll that over into the following week, that will allow us to be able to kickstart our CVS pharmacy program, Walgreens pharmacy program, and so forth to long-term care. She was also asking, is there something going on at the federal level, and do I have any insight into that? And the answer is no, I really don't. Pfizer is dealing directly with the federal government. We're told our allocations. They are just forecasts and estimates, similar to the tests, the Abbott Buy Now cards that the federal government supplies us. They try to do it on a regular basis, but again, that is subject to whatever availability they have, and we don't have a direct insight into that because we're not dealing directly with Pfizer, Moderna, Abbott, any of those that are providing those test supplies to us. So we just continue to hope that we get those doses here, and that we can start to continue distributing those to our local health departments, health providers, long-term care, all that.
That's all I got.
That's all you got? All right, great.
Governor,
Fred.
I couldn't follow. I thought you needed to have half of 55,000 in order to start with the long-term care. But
Right. Yeah, sure. So let me take a step back. We've got a number of facilities. Actually, if you count in all the things besides, that get lumped into that category of long-term care, it's about 528 different facilities. There's about 114 that are not a part of the pharmacy program. And so they're going to be taken care of through our long-term, or through our local public health departments with Moderna, the Moderna vaccine. And that will likely start next week. Then the balance of those will be taken care of through the pharmacy program with Walgreens, CVS, and the community pharmacies. To start that program, the federal government has required us that we bank enough for half of those vaccines. So if you take our 11,700 from this week and we roll it over into the 11,700 we're supposed to get next week, you get over 23,000. That's the half we need to be able to start that community pharmacy, that pharmacy program, to be able to start using the Pfizer vaccine with those long-term care facilities that we cover under the pharmacy program.
And is there a difference in type between the 114 and the rest of the 598?
So is there a difference in type, Fred's asking, between the long-term care facilities that are in the pharmacy program versus the ones that are not? There's a variety of reasons. It was up to the long-term care facility to sign up. In some cases, for example, it may be in a more rural area where they don't have a CVS or a Walgreens handy to be able to cover them. They may have just had a preference not to do that way and wanted to work directly with their local public health department. So there's several different reasons why a long-term care facility may not have signed up for that pharmacy program. Martha, did you have a question?
Yes. Why are we starting the long-term care vaccinations before we finish the healthcare workers? I thought the one group we were going to try and get through that group first.
So Martha's question is, why are we starting long-term care as ahead of the frontline hospital workers? Actually, both groups are all in phase 1A. So if you go look at our website, when we posted that, I think I can't remember exactly when that all got put together, but originally it was going to be hospital workers and long-term care staff. And then a couple of weeks ago, I don't remember exactly when, we put long-term care residents in there as well, based upon the advice of the federal government. So long-term care staff, residents, and frontline hospital workers are all in phase 1A. So we're pushing forward on all those fronts to be able to take care of those populations. Andrew.
I have a question about the corrections. We have a lot of staff that seem to be either getting COVID or out with COVID. Are you guys doing enough to, protect these staff people? And then number two, what about all of the sick time or COVID time, that these guys are burning through even if they have to quarantine?
So Andrew asked a couple questions. One, with regard to corrections staff, a number have been either quarantined or have contracted the virus itself. And, obviously we work to be able to protect our team members with masking and all the other protocols. As we know, congregate living is going to be one of the places where you're more at risk to get the virus, because the virus spreads from person to person. So that's why we take particular care with the long-term care facilities, why Director Frakes has a plan for corrections. And then also, you may recall from the spring, we paid special attention to our food processing plants, where again, you had a lot of people who were working very close contact to each other. With regard to the quarantine time and sick time, the federal government had a policy to allow folks to be able to get additional time off, and that's what we've done here at the state as well. So we've granted people the ability to be able to take that quarantine time or take that sick time if they are doing it and not impact their sick pool, through the balance of this year. So we've actually accommodated our state teammates by giving them more time off, if it's specifically for that coronavirus, either isolation or quarantine.
What will happen if some of those things are starting to run out, though?
So the question is, what will happen if some of those things are starting to run out? Well, I'd say stay tuned. We'll have, we'll make some announcements with regard to how we'll address it in the upcoming year.
Governor, what's your reaction to the state auditor's letter to the Department of Labor that said, as a result of not cross-matching self-reported wages with taxes, there was a potential of $535 to $800 million at risk having been misspent?
Yeah, we certainly appreciate the work the auditor does. audit is an important function for any organization to have a second set of eyes on things. We disagree with the auditors making such a broad generalization off of a relatively small sample size. And so, for example, the Department of Labor gets checked on by the U.S. Department of Labor and just had one of those reviews and had very minor, corrections come out of that review, and we expect to have additional reviews. So, we're remember that we went through, or we received 4 years' worth of claims within a period of about 4 months, and the Department of Labor has done an outstanding job of making sure that they were getting those claims out the door. We took steps to be able to streamline the process, to make it easier on people to be able to get those checks during the pandemic. And, we're going to continue to do those audits as we go through it. So, like I said, we appreciate the auditor's work. We disagree with his findings. I think the Department of Labor is doing a great job, and we'll continue to, to look on how we can make sure we prevent fraud. In fact, I think we just brought on 50 more fraud investigators in the Department of Labor to be able to help address that issue. Other questions? Yeah, Andrew. First Lady.
Well, that or trip. Okay, what's up?
We see the governor, constantly, and he's on a pretty stoic pace. But you see him personally, how heavy has all these deaths taken on him personally?
This has been an incredibly challenging time, starting with the floods and then moving into this. It weighs heavily on him. He takes all Nebraskans' lives as something that he values. I'm glad that he's home. I'm glad that he gets to spend time with me. There's a lot of stress, but he's bearing it well. He feels like he still says he has the best job in the world, and it's an honor to be able to serve Nebraskans. So he's bearing it much better than I could. Yeah, but we're taking care of each other, and we'll get through this just like the rest of Nebraska.
And the people you're donating blood in honor of, would you feel comfortable in talking about?
Yeah, so Roger Ryman is a gentleman. Sorry about that. The question was, can I talk about the people that I'll be donating blood in honor of? Roger Ryman is a gentleman who was from Lincoln. I know his daughter, and it was a very painful loss. He was 70, living a great life, but really trying to take a lot of precautions, and he just ended up with COVID and died suddenly. That was about 4 weeks ago. There was a great write-up about him in the Lincoln Journal-Star. And then Mary O'Hare was in her 90s, living on her own. She contracted COVID, as did her daughter, and they were able to stay together. So her daughter, Mary, also took care of her. So that was some quality time that they got to spend. But Mary, the elderly Mary, did pass. So I just know them through the community collaborative work. So, is that it? Thank you, dear.
Thank you, honey. And it has been a challenging time for everybody in the state. Everybody's been stressed and had to go through a lot through this pandemic. Other questions? All right, seeing now, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Again, we've got the Nebraska State Patrol graduation ceremony for Camp 6-3 coming up at 10 a.m. And then next week, we will be back in this room at 10 a.m. And then there will be no further press briefings the rest of Christmas week, and we've got none planned for New Year's week. So you're going to all have a little bit of vacation from me. Andrew, you won't see me constantly anymore. Yes, Andrew, what?
About property taxes.
Property taxes, sure.
I just got my property tax statement from Lancaster County, and my valuations jumped up, and my property taxes jumped up. I mean, what about that? If you see, I guess people are going to be getting their property tax valuations, and they see their property taxes jump up, but the relief doesn't cover even that increase. What does say to us about?
So Andrew's saying he got his property tax statement and his valuation went up, and consequently his taxes went up. because apparently your taxing entities didn't take your levy down to offset the increase in valuations. And how, and you know, what do we say about that with regard to 1107? While 1107 will address giving additional relief, what you talk about with regard to putting some sort of restraint on those taxes going up is something we were not able to achieve in 1107, and that's something that we'll have to take up in the legislature in the upcoming session in January to be able to make sure we get that second piece, which is restraining how fast those taxes can go up, to make sure that the relief the state is providing is making a difference for Nebraskans.
And how big of a priority will that be?
And the question is, how big of a priority will that be for me with regard to that? That will be a big priority. That's the next step in what we have to do to continue to get that property tax relief for Nebraskans. All right, folks. Well, again, thank you all very much. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season, and we look forward to, again, seeing you all on Monday.